Welcome to the section on working with your special educator. And I think that this is such an important piece of this work. And if you dedicate the time and you get a good flow going with your special educator, it really is the difference between a Harkness practice that's fine, that meets most of the requirements, does most of what you want it to do, and a Harkness practice that is exemplary, that really has the power to change the experience of your students. So I want to just review this slideshow and to hopefully frame for you what this work can and should look like, and to put into your head some considerations that you really should be engaging with every time you're beginning to plan to have a Harkness discussion. So, as part of the class that I teach to adults on the Harkness method, there is an entire class dedicated. There's an entire class dedicated to special education at the table, and that class is always co-run with a special educator from CVU. And one of the things that when I brought this material to a special educator, a colleague of mine who I'm very close with, she said, I think it would be really useful if I, the special educator, generated a slide to demonstrate all of the questions that teachers should be asking themselves as they're beginning to plan. At least the questions that teachers should be asking themselves as they relate to including all students and especially students with IEPs. These are, I can't say enough, such important questions that I think too frequently, and I've been guilty of this, get overlooked. And if you only have the bandwidth to think about a few, let me just draw your attention to this first one. When can I work with my special educator to prepare for students on IEPs? If you're going to have a discussion, let's just be blunt. You should find time to work with your special educator ahead of time. Use that time, for example, just to plan the prep sheet. Use that time to talk about a handful of students that they're working with. And now let's talk about this third question. How can a Harkness be paired with a student's IEP goals? Go to that special educator and say, hey, do you have any students whose goals could be assessed through this discussion? And that way you're having a mutually beneficial collaboration with that special educator. They're going to help you provide a more inclusive experience for your students, and you're going to help them collect data on their students. So these are just some ways that a discussion can align with IEP goals across basic skill areas. I can't speak for all teachers, but I know that I get stuck in a myopic place sometimes about my preparation, and I don't think about my collaborators, in this case, special educators. So this hopefully just sets the context that these discussions can be really at cross purposes with our collaborators. These are some examples of accommodations for students who do struggle. And I'll show you a really wonderful example created by Harwood Union in just a second. So as I said, step one, establish that connection with a special educator. Plan those accommodations. The prep sheet is, in my view, the most valuable tool for differentiation and accommodation that we have in the Harkness world. So for example, here is, let me click on this, a non-modified prep sheet that my co-teacher and I used for a discussion about just mercy. We have the guiding question, We have the content boxes, place to ask questions, place to add in sentence stems that maybe they want to use. And now here's a modified version. So it's simplified. The text is bigger. The font is bigger. We have provided a piece of evidence. We have a space for them to provide context related to that piece of evidence. We've provided some probing questions as models that then they could write their own. And then here's a reflection. So just an example of what that can look like. I think the only other thing I'll say about this particular slide is that I think it's best practice to give students time to fill out the prep sheet, the class before the discussion. And that is an amazing opportunity to sit with students who you know will struggle and coach them. Drive them towards the work you want them to be doing on their prep sheet. Talk a little bit with your special educator about what that coaching can and should look like. Another thing to think about, I lied, I'm going to say one more thing about this slide. Another thing to think about when you think about including all students at the table is think about where you're going to seat students. If there's a student that you know is going to struggle, can you sit them next to a friend who will make them feel more comfortable? Could you sit them next to you so that maybe you could prompt them with a little note on their prep sheet? Think about your own preparation. Could your opener be a question that you know they have? And if you allow them to ask that question, it'll really build their confidence. So, such an important concept that, to a certain extent, differentiation and accommodation is a little bit of a Band-Aid, when what you really want to be doing, and this starts with building a culture of trust, and chapters 2 and 3 in this course hopefully have provided a robust sense of how to do this. What you really want to do is have a neurodivergent environment in your class. For example, one of the things we used to do in this content is we taught that eye contact was a soft skill. Well, what we know now, or what I know now, many of you knew this for years, that engaged, locked in eye contact is to some degree an expectation that is a neurotypical expectation. For many neurodivergent students, looking someone in the eye is deeply, deeply uncomfortable and should not preclude them from participating in the discussion, because their eye contact has no bearing on the degree to which they are listening and engaged in the discussion. So I really want to encourage you, one just small, concrete way to establish a neurodivergent environment: don't be concerned with eye contact in your class. Instead, come up with other ways of defining proof of listening. One way you can do that is, and there are examples of this in chapters 2 and 3, do activities very early on, day 1, where you have kids identify and share their communication style with other kids, so that I might know that is, a student, I might know that the person sitting across from me, when they're paying deep attention, they might be doodling on a piece of paper. And because I know that about them, I'm not going to be put off when I see it. This is a great example of one way that a special educator at Harwood Union modified a prep sheet to be more inclusive. So this was a prep sheet about the letterham from Birmingham jail by Dr. King, and this special educator went ahead and identified themes and color-coded them. This special educator here, if you look on the far right-hand side of the text, provided some guided questions. Now, again, if the teacher isn't working actively with their special educator, these moves, which might completely unlock the discussion for a student, they might not happen. But if a teacher really has a good flow and good collaboration with their special educator, these types of really inclusive moves are much more likely to happen. The activity in this section that you're about to begin involves this slide. This slide describes an IEP comprehension goal for a fictional student. So what I would like you to do is read this goal, read the objective, and think about how you, in collaboration with your special educator, could use your discussion, whether it be a humanities-style 12-person circle or a math and science-style 3 to 5 person small group discussion. How could you, in your context, I should say, think about the teacher, your context. How could you use a discussion in your context to assess this goal?